What is up, guys? This is going to be my first OH ramble. I'm finally expanding from mindset and general concepts along with just general two-handed videos, because if my ramble isn't about just mindset or like a general concept, it's usually just going to be two-hand specific. This one's about one-handed, and more specifically it's about turning styles and why I think Pinky, I wouldn't necessarily say it's, measurably, objectively superior to Ring in all cases, all the time, forever. I think Ring probably works pretty good for things like Rue. ZZ, I don't know, who cares? Rue's better. Sorry, ZZ users. Yeah, this is in the context of one-handed CFOP solving. So why Ring is very, 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 very problematic for one-hand solving. And just for some background, I used to use Ring style turning. I will actually show you briefly how I used to turn. R like that, R prime like that, sometimes like that, mostly like this. Use with normal, F's for like this, maybe this sometimes. D moves, like that. I mean, you can't really do that. But I was doing this like wonky ass R prime. And if you go back onto my channel, so basically the last time I used ring finger in comp, I was able to get a 13.60 official average. It put me 15th in the world at the time. This is in like very early 2015. And after that comp, I realized, I mean, maybe it was possible to improve my average with Ring, but like it was just causing me so many problems that I just had to switch to Pinky. And if you fast forward 6 months from then, I was able to improve my average by 0.03, which doesn't sound like much, but I was enjoying the event a lot more, and it was, in general, Ring was causing me too many problems that I just know Pinky didn't. And if you fast forward to the present day, I now have a sub 12 official average. I think I have like 2, 3, 4 of them now, and I've kind of lost count. And also an 808 single. I mean, single's dumb. Basically, I've improved a fair bit since switching to Pinky, and I don't think a lot of people really talk about switching from Ring to Pinky and also doing it successfully and just like the intellectual side of it. So we're going to get into that. Before I do that, I want to give a shout out to Kieran. He's a cuber I met at US Nationals in 2018. I don't know if this will be uploaded in 2018 or 2019. I'm thinking 2019. But he's pretty much what sparked my idea for this video, so I just want to give a huge shout out to that guy. He's a real cool dude. Pretty good at OH, although he is a Ring solver, but I have convinced him to switch to Pinky. Basically for the reasons that are in this video, so shouts out to Kieran. So yeah, I've already explained, I used to use Ring, and it took me roughly 6 months to switch, and I will get into the nitty-gritty of... I will never apologize for my burping on camera, by the way. Feels good, doesn't it? But anyways, I'll get into the nitty-gritty about how you should actually switch. Spoiler alert, it's mostly cold turkey and it's gonna suck. But it shouldn't take you 6 months, that was mostly just... I don't know, it's probably just like, as cubing progresses, I think it's just easier for people to improve quickly because hardware's better and etc, resources and whatnot. It also depends on how much you practice. I feel like I did practice pretty hard, to be completely honest, so maybe it will take like 6 months, or maybe even longer, but that doesn't matter. I'm going to give you a compelling argument for why you should switch. So the first thing I want to talk about is grip, and more specifically how grip can affect hand health, in my opinion. So with Ring solving, 90% of your solve, you're only going to be gripping the cube with 2 fingers. And, you just try picking up the cube and, trying to, like, manipulate it, like doing rotations and stuff. Basically, you have to grip a lot harder. You have to use a lot more, like, hand strength, or more specifically finger strength, to be able to do that. And that amount of stress, so compared to Pinky, you will sometimes have to move your ring finger a bit, but it's only, when it's pretty convenient, and then you can usually reset really quickly. You try to, like, rotate with the 3 fingers, and you notice there's just like a lot less strain on your hand that's going on. So what does this mean for hand health? Well, basically, hand health, in my opinion, it's going to affect how much you can practice. And what I mean by that is, again, going back to myself, back when I used to use ring finger, I could not really do more than 50 solves before my average legitimately got worse for no other reason than hand fatigue. My hand would get tired quicker because I was straining it for a longer period of time because of the grip. So, either my thumb would get tired or sore if I was being silly and practicing too much. And that's another thing, you can actually injure your hands practicing like this, honestly, which is why I want to, stress this point. but assuming you don't injure yourself, you fatigue your hand a lot quicker. Usually the fatigue will happen in the thumb, sometimes it'll happen in the middle finger, and you can also get bad strains there as well. You can also get a bit of fatigue in the ring finger as well, just because you're using it so much, and it's just a much more awkward angle. Like, you have to, at least for me, like, I have to, you know, my fingers want to stay like this, I have to, like, stretch that way, and also, like, manipulate my finger. Whereas if I'm gripping like this, you know, my pinky, I don't have to, like, bring my pinky out, it's just kind of there. I bring it out a little, but just not as much as my ring finger. Like, I shouldn't have to make too compelling an argument for that. So yeah, basically, because your hand will get fatigued quicker, and this is, I don't think there's any debate about this. I don't think you can prove that solving with pinky fatigues your hand faster. There's just no anecdote for it whatsoever, and good luck finding a study on that. Not that you should need a study for every single thing ever. So yeah, let's just assume fatigue, it's gonna mess you up, and it's gonna affect how much you can practice. So with that, how does your amount of practice affect things? Well, if you can't practice as much as someone who uses pinky, that's going to affect, firstly, how much you can improve, because you can only do so many solves in the day where you're solving at your best, before you have to either take a break due to pain issues or due to just getting frustrated with your times. Maybe you can burn through it, but even then, I think the injury issue is too big to ignore. And usually people do stop OH sessions once they just start getting cramps. I think most people do that. That's just a normal thing. And on top of that, it's also the fatigue side of things. It's also going to affect how well you can compete. And my anecdote for this is going back to the 13.6 official average I got back in early 2015. There were 2 rounds of that comp. So the first round, I didn't warm up too much because at the time I had like some intuitive idea, you know, if I wear my hand out, I'm just going to fuck up. I ended up getting 13.6, which was really, really good for me. I don't think I was globally sub 14 at the time, not even close. And then in the other round, so there was only 2 rounds of the comp, I got a 17 average. As you can imagine, later in the day, my hand was a lot more tired, and honestly, I don't think I even messed up that much in the average. I probably got some worse PLLs, things of that nature, but my hand was just fatigued, and I just could not solve as fast. This is problematic for major competitions. If you're someone who uses ring finger for OH with CFOP, again, go away reusers, easy users, or don't, watch this video instead. Actually, yeah, just do that. But yeah, point being, for major competitions it sucks, because usually there's going to be 4 rounds at major competitions. It's very rare that all 4 rounds are going to be separated across all 4 days, if there even are 4 days to begin with. So naturally, how you manage your hand fatigue is going to be a very, very important thing if you want to do well. And I know there are ring solvers that can get like 11 or 12 second averages, but because of the fatigue side of things, I think, for the most part, you're going to be hard-pressed to see a ring solver, you know, even make the podium in a major competition. Max Park being somewhat of an exception, but I'll explain why he's an exception later. It's mostly due to table abuse, but I'll get into it later, so. And most ring users, I don't really see them using the table as much as Max. So yeah, it's going to really bleed into how much you can practice and how much you can actually improve, because if you're doing less solves than someone who uses pinky, and just like anecdotally speaking, when I like switched to pinky and got comfortable with it, I can do averages of 200 with pretty much no problem. My hand will get like a little fatigued and sore, but like it doesn't feel like an injury's coming on, and I don't think I'm really slowing down that much. Whereas with ring, again, like it would take 50, and I'd be lucky to get through that average of 50 and get anything, you know, close to PB. And then if I didn't get that PB in the first 50 solves, it would just kind of go downhill, and it just wouldn't really be possible anymore. So, another thing about ring solving, again, because your grip is just so much more unstable, in my opinion, and stability becomes a bigger issue, your hardware is generally going to matter a lot more if you're solving with ring versus if you're solving with pinky. And this, I think, is pretty anecdotally true. I've noticed over the years that people who solve with pinky, a lot of them, they can just use their two-handed cube and do fine. That's kind of what I do at competitions, and that's what I have done in the past few years. Whereas when I used ring, I would have to, like, really... I couldn't just have a two-hand main that was my OH main. I needed to have a specific cube just for OH. And, you know, that also affects practice time, because that's time I have to spend making sure my cube's up to par so that I can do my 50 solves on it before my hand starts to scream at me. And when I switched to pinky, you know, I found, you know, I can just use just about any cube. with not really a big problem. Another thing with that is I've also noticed a lot of ring solvers, they tend to use like outdated hardware, and again I think that just comes back to, you know, having a very specific need for a certain type of hardware just due to the less stable grip that you'll have. Another thing I've kind of noticed is when it comes to people who solve with Pinky, it's a lot easier to translate two-hand algs with Pinky. So in that regard, I know some people complain with Ring that like, oh, if I switch to Pinky then I'll have to optimize my algs with Pinky. Like, you don't really. Because the thing is, if you solve with Ring, you've probably optimized your OH algs to such a large extent that they can work with Ring, but there's a very good chance that they will work with Pinky. Maybe I am overlooking something, but in my opinion, switching to Pinky will make your OH alg life a lot easier because RUD, RUL, RUF turning, they all become a lot easier than they are with Ring. So that's pretty much my ramble on why I think solving with your ring finger is really, really problematic for people. So how should one try to switch to Pinky? So the way I did it, first thing was just cold turkey. If I was, you know, doing a practice session, I would not use, you know, ring style turning. I would try to do the correct thing, quote unquote. And if you're looking for ideas on correct Pinky turning, I would highly encourage you to check out videos by Phil Yu. I think he's got some very good videos on his personal channel about OH turning drills and ideas there. Mikhail Pleskovich, or Plesko, he recently released a video on, I think it was like every OH finger trick you need to know. And I mean, people could make some arguments there, but I think for the most part, the way he turns is like very close to optimal, or at least very optimized, and the video will be very useful to you, is the point. I guess I could quickly show how I turn with Pinky since I've already showed how to do it with Ring. So R moves. Sometimes I'll do R2 like that, sometimes I'll do that, just depends on my grip. U moves. I never really use this, by the way. I've never found that too useful for me. Maybe for something like that. But in general, I will just flick. U moves, I find this a lot more useful for stuff like that, maybe. Or like a back sexy, I feel like, I don't know, I have a bit of trouble with the... Okay, maybe I don't. The U moves, you can really just do whatever you want. I think, regardless of what turning style you use, your U move should be on point if you care about one-handed. D moves, I do Ring, because again, you do have the ability to reset very quickly. If you do D prime with the push, you kind of get an automatic reset without having to do a thing. L moves, either do wide Rs, rotate, or you can do this thing that Plesko's shown, like that. And I do some wonky stuff with my middle finger as well, just depending on like AUF. I'll also sometimes use that for AUF, sometimes that. Again, it just depends on grip. Sometimes this is better, sometimes this is better. F moves, FF prime. I also use a lot of this, and especially because I have this like grip here. So with ring finger, I think the way I used to do this F prime is I would have to block these two layers with my ring finger instead of my pinky. And like this is a very just like awkward, not ergonomic position for your hand to be in, which I think could cause some hand pain for some people. I think because of my long fingers, it's not so bad for me. But yeah, with pinky, I can have it just around there, and it's a lot nicer. But I'll also use the thumb sometimes as well. I don't really use this F2, although I'm surprisingly good at it. And then there's this weird B prime people do, and then also the fat F prime, which is pretty cool. S moves, they work for some reason. I wish I could table abuse, I can't, I don't do Ru. I don't want to learn table abuse for like 3 algs, I'm sorry. So yeah, that's more or less how I turn with Pinky. But definitely check out videos from Phil Yu and also Mikhail Pleskovich. I think they're going to get you on the right path for CFOP especially. So yeah, that's pretty much the whole ramble. I will get into the Max Park side of things in a sec. But one thing I really want to stress when it comes to Pinky versus Ring, it's not personal preference. I think there is a very good case to be made for Ring being objectively worse than Pinky in the context of CFOP for the reasons I've illustrated. For Ru, it might be a little different just because of the nature of the method and the turning used. For ZZ, I think it is probably similar. I think for ZZ it's probably worse to use Ring. I don't know how you could really make an argument there since the turns used are pretty similar to CFOP, you just rotate less. Which, I mean, I guess rotations with Ring are pretty annoying, so I guess it's a little... I guess it's probably the worst for CFOP by far, that's what I would say. But it's not personal preference, it's just a bad habit, is kind of what I'm trying to stress. So don't think of it as like, oh, I'm edgy, I'm cool, I use ring because I'm cool. And it's just personal preference, bro. It's just personal preference, bro. It's not personal preference. So before I end the video, I'm going to talk a bit about if you really want to double down on ring turning because you're a complete edgelord. If you want to double down on ring because you're a complete edgelord, do what Max Park does and use lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of table abuse. In my opinion, having the table here, this really helps the grip fatigue side of things, and I think if you're going to use ring finger and not switch because you're lazy, you may as well at least learn how to use table abuse, because using ring finger in the air is absolutely going to cause you strain problems. Whereas if you mitigate it with the table where you can kind of reset your hand often and not have to have such a vice grip on the cube, that will help you out. And that's more or less why I think Max has been able to make his OH style work. Because he's able to mitigate fatigue using the table, and I mean, I still think he would be faster if he did pinky in the air, but for the way he does ring, I don't know how much more he could really optimize it, and I think if you're going to stick to ring, you may as well strive to solve like Max Park. I know table abuse is lame, we all know, we're all angry at Rue users because ZZ would be the best method without table abuse, but table abuse exists, so you may as well use it. So if you really care about OH and you're willing to learn any method, you may as well learn Rue. If you're just going to stick to your method, and maybe a suboptimal way of turning, you may as well make use of table abuse since it is legal, and I think for ring solvers who use CFOP, it's going to get you a lot further, although it will feel slightly lame. So that's pretty much everything I want to say about ring turning for OH. For 90% of people, you should just make the effort to switch using drills like lots of 2-gen scrambles. Those are really helpful for me, like learning all the like coordination tricks. And then just like switching cold turkey and just trying to do the right things in my solves. You've just got to get over the fact that you're going to be slow for a while. Like I think at first I was averaging like 17, and then it wasn't until like a couple months later that I was able to get similar averages. Actually, I think it was either 2 to 4 months after switching I got my official PB single from like 11 something to 10 something. And I also got a low 14 average, which was my second best, so it was my best with Pinky and second best overall in comp. So, you know, I know short-term gratification, it's a real thing, but like, just be willing to play the long game, guys. 4 to 6 months, maybe a bit more, but you know what, if it's a bit more, too bad. It's worth it, if you care. But then if you don't, well, that's different. Thanks for watching.